Hi, Dr. Joe.
Hello, hello.
It is so great to be connected, and thank you so much for coming on to this conversation with me today.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad we were able to fit it in and chat.
Yes. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Dr. Joe Abretski, and he is a chiropractor and the founder of Omni Family Chiropractic, which is a practice here in Richmond, Virginia. And we are going to get into the chiropractic practice and everything about it and how it can just be a really great tool in someone's holistic health toolbox, if you will. So, Dr. Joe, if you could just start us out and tell a little bit more about your story, background, and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I'd love to. And, in fact, before I go too far, I would like to say, I appreciate you calling me the founder of Omni Family
Not the
Chiropractic, but I'm
founder.
definitely going
Okay.
to give that a big piece of that to my wife. She definitely
Okay.
is the majority there.
Got
Her name is
Good.
Maxine, also a chiropractor. So Dr. Maxine, we're a
Uh-huh.
husband-wife team at our office, Omni Family Chiropractic. And we met in chiropractic school, but what drew me to that, I guess, I actually am a Virginia, not native, but I went to school at JMU in Harrisonburg, and I actually studied kinesiology, so a lot of about the science of movement. Now, anybody that is kind of in that realm of like exercise science, you look in a class of 100 people and say, hey, who here wants to be a physical therapist? Probably about 90 of them would raise their hands. Now, I'm not like a 90% kind of guy. And I soon realized I got to figure a way to get off the beaten path, but, go a little weird, but not too weird. And ended up stumbling across an internship with a chiropractor when I was at JMU. And lo and behold, went down to Atlanta not to practice, but to go to school. Met my now wife, also a chiropractor now, Maxine. And we just went through school together, and I started understanding a lot about chiropractic, whether the science of it, the philosophy of it, the art of it, all of it, understanding how to do our I guess our healing art. Practiced down there for a while, and then I'm originally from Central Maryland, and she's originally from New York, and neither of us had like a particularly strong I guess pull to go back to our hometowns. So we were like, hey, let's just start our life wherever we want to, because we can. And we found Richmond by another chiropractor who is down in South Chesterfield, a friend of ours. And we hung out in Richmond, and a lunch trip turned into a long weekend, turned into, hey, what the heck, let's just do it. And and we just decided to call Richmond our home, and we've been here since 2019, although it feels like a lifetime. And we're just super happy what we're doing. We're practicing now in kind of like the West End, so off of Patterson, and like kind of three chop near the new. And it's not new. It's forgive me, I'm not super local. So what's the grocery store that makes all the cakes?
Village, the Publix.
No, the one that's further up that just opened up, that has like the old school cakes and stuff like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh no, it's a Richmond like staple.
U-Crops used to do all
U-Crops.
that.
Yeah, U-Crops.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a new U-Crops there.
Cool.
So I guess maybe not new, but it's we're just kind of down the road from there.
Got it. Well, that's awesome. And the fact that you feel like you've been here for a while, I mean, Richmond is a gem. So obviously you've kind of found your place. And I love that story of just kind of starting off somewhere new to kind of make it your own for you and your wife. So that's great. And there's some things that I want to ask along those lines and unpack, especially when it came to what sparked your interest in wanting to study the science of movement. I mean, was it something that, were you very active, or?
I suppose so. I was always like a pretty, I guess, small frame guy. Like I was, the one that was so fitness, kind of different way, kind of came very naturally to me, because every time like the PE classes would come around, I'd be the one that hops up on there on the pull-up bar and like cranks out 10, without catching a breath. And just because I was only pulling, it's easy to pull up. You do 10 pull-ups when you have like 65 pounds to pull up. So I was like, oh, I'm really good at this. And really it was just because I was, a scrawny little kid. But, fitness just came very naturally to me. And I really liked it. And same with sports. And I was a wrestler in school and in high school. And, it was actually that drew me to, my first adjustment as a kid. I was a wrestler even before high school. It was like a club match or club meet. And, it was a whole tournament on a weekend. And then I think on a Sunday I woke up and my back was so, in so much pain, I couldn't move, out of bed. And just I was, I guess, like 12 or something like that. So it's not normal for a 12-year-old.
Right.
So I went to a chiropractor for the first time. And this is when I lived in Maryland, and he got me adjusted. And, my mom had been going for a long time, but, she had never thought to bring me. She thought that chiropractic was just something that adults get, when they hurt.
Right.
And it wasn't until, her child's son got hurt. There's like, oh, maybe like this could help him. And then not only did it help me get hurt, but it helped me not get hurt. So I kept on doing it, especially during wrestling season. And it was something I used in like just recovery, for my own personal recovery for sports and all that. So I tell people, and this is why my practice now is a very family focused. Like we see a lot of kids, a lot of, pregnant moms, all that kind of stuff, because it's not just about an injury for us. It's about how do we enhance life. And that's really the focus. And most of our practice is amazing. And it's such a beautiful blessing, because I get to be surrounded by people that I recognize injuries are a thing and hurt is a thing, but most of the people that come to our office do so because they want to be well, and their main goals are wellness. So most of our practice is people that come in, hey, I just want to get a quick tune up. I'm doing great. I feel great. I'm moving great. I just want to make sure that's still my thing. And there's nothing that makes me happier than making sure that other people, not only they feel good, but they're doing the things they want to do, so like, whether that means playing with their grandkids, or whether that means kind of crawling on the floor with the kiddos, or, mountain biking, or doing any of the crazy stuff. Like that's the stuff that really gets me excited when people are hitting those kind of personal milestones, that's what they want to be doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's fascinating. I actually didn't really know that kids could get chiropractic work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And cool. I didn't either until I needed it. And then I'm like, holy cow, my big question is like, what if I had this done before I got injured? Maybe I wouldn't have gotten injured. Do you know what I mean? So, that's the whole thing. A lot of moms that come in here that they're pregnant, they get adjusted their whole pregnancy. And then the second they have their kid, their baby, come here Earthside, they bring the baby in. I'm like, hey, can you check my little one? And I think the earliest we've adjusted is like 2 days old. And it's just because, birth is, anybody's a mom can tell you, birth's a pretty tough thing. So if birth is hard, then imagine how the baby feels. So, and believe me, anybody that's listening, about like, oh my gosh, an infant getting adjusted, it's very different than an adult, and very different than a kid. Everything is very customized, and to those needs. And really the pressure we use there is like checking on like the ripeness of a tomato. So it's very, very different than what I probably see on YouTube.
Right, for sure. And that's something that I definitely want to get into in a little bit, because full disclosure, I'm pregnant currently.
Oh, cool. Congrats.
Yeah. And so it's been on my, when I went to see a chiropractor, this was probably almost 6-7 years ago. And it was just kind of due to back pain, and which I then realized later was due to misalignment, which I think was actually then traced back to a car accident I had been in. But anyway, I think that my dad always had a really bad back. So I think it was kind of something I was also inherited. But definitely want to pick your brain about that. But before I do, how much of, when people go to see a chiropractor is preventative, like they're not really experiencing any pain yet, versus like responsive or reactive, in the fact of like they've gotten to a point, a breaking almost, and they need some help.
Right. I'd say of our existing people, most people are very into, looking to be, as far as take it from a preventative approach.
Wow.
However, to get to that point, they don't walk in saying, hey, I heard that you can enhance my life. Like that doesn't happen, no different than, with dealing in like the health, space, like health, like whether it's health food, health, yoga, whatever it is, nobody wakes up one day and says, oh my gosh, like I want to eat this health food supplement because I heard it's gonna, you know, it's going to change. It's going to make me, you know, express health better. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, how do I like move better? You know, I want to digest better. Like there's something typically that's wrong that's getting
Mhm.
to that point, you know?
Mhm.
So nobody just kind of falls from the sky and says, hey, I want to maintain and optimize my innate, natural, inborn potential. And as much as I would love to do that, and that's what we do, really what we have to do is start from like a starting point and
Right.
then bring it up a notch once we understand, like we get like a baseline thing corrected.
Mhm.
Because like you said, life happens. You know, you had been in a car accident, so
Mhm.
car accidents happen. You know, slips
Yeah.
and fall happen. Anybody that's got, you know, that a 1 or 2 year old knows that kids fall over and hit their head like 100 times a day. So, you
Mhm.
know, life just happens.
Mhm.
We have physical stresses, we have chemical stresses, we have emotional stressors. So those aren't going away,
Mhm.
and they impact us. So usually it's a point where people are reactive. I think just that's our nature.
Yeah.
We react to things. Um, and I'm not perfect. I'll tell my wife, I'll tell Dr. Maxine, I was like, hey, oh my gosh, like something's killing me. Can you check my spine?
Mm.
Can you check my alignment? So like even then, like that me verbalizing it that way, I'm
Yeah.
saying, I feel like something's wrong. Can you check it? So like I'm being reactive in that way. So
Yes, for sure.
nobody's perfect. There's a slipping and checking that comes with it, but for the most part, I feel that we try to have that preventative approach, but just humans, we need tune-ups. So that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just hearing you kind of talk about chiropractic, I mean, it just seems like it takes on this essentially a holistic health bent. And I love how that seems to be your philosophy and mission when people walk into your practice, is to really enhance their life. And, you know, they're probably dialed into the fact of wanting to feel well. So, you know, as a holistic health coach, and, you know, it being very important to me that anything that I do is falls along under the umbrella of being a holistic health company, brand, et cetera. You know,
Right.
what would be kind of your definition of health from a chiropractor perspective?
Um, the so a thing that I often like think quote back, I guess, is, and I don't know necessarily
Mhm.
if I agree with this perfectly, but I think the bones of it is good.
Mhm.
There's the statement that was by the World Health Organization years and years and years ago, but they said something along the lines of how health is a state of total like physical, emotional, social well-being, and
Mm.
not merely the absence of disease.
Mhm.
So that's a cool thing I think about a lot. Like we think that health is, hey, am I hurt? Am I injured? Am I sick? Am I ill?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm. Yep.
and I think that's more important. That's more, I guess, known now than ever. You know, we have plenty of with, you know, whether it's coronavirus, like pandemic, like that's like what's our world we live in right now. That's, I think,
Yeah.
the most perfect expression of that. Are we well, or are we just simply not sick?
Right.
And I know a lot of people that, or no, I'm sure that we've all heard of a lot of people that, oh, they were, you know, so and so was fine, and they ended up getting you know, coronavirus or something like that, or the flu, or
Mhm.
whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like it wasn't this thing that got them. It was their body was not at an ability to adapt to its environment,
Mm.
um, and then that was what they were susceptible to. So,
Mhm.
you know, that's kind of like where everybody says, hey, you know, don't, you know, make sure you bundle up in the outside, you know, before you go outside, because it's cold outside. Don't want you to get sick. Well, cold weather doesn't make you sick. It's you know, the environment that puts your body at a decreased ability to adapt to its what's
Mm.
around it.
Mhm.
You know, like if you eat McDonald's cheeseburgers all the time, you're not going to feel sick. Now, it wasn't
Yeah.
the cheeseburger that made you sick. It was the environment that was around you and within you that made you susceptible to that. So with health, it's okay. Well, how do we focus not just on avoiding illness? Because that's not healthy. In my opinion, health is not about how we feel, about if we feel healthy or something like that. Because it's more about how well is our body functioning? How well is our body adapting to its environment?
Mhm.
That's, I think, the biggest key right there is how adaptable are we?
And I love that perspective because it almost takes you out of kind of like a victim mentality, like
Yeah.
just taking um, the cheeseburger example. It's like, oh, well, that did that to me versus like, it almost puts it on a spin of a sense of self-care. Like, oh, this is something that I need to nurture and nourish in a certain environment or with certain stimuli or what have you. And, knowing that your body doesn't adapt to certain things, situations, foods, practices, exercises, or what have you, it kind of like empowers you to want to make a better
Yeah.
choice,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just
You
from you and your
heal
body's
you.
perspective.
The
Yeah.
body heals itself. Like nothing, no
Hmm.
chiropractor, no doctor, no health food, no, the greatest surgeon in the world can't heal a cut. They can only
Mm.
put the body in a position to heal itself. So it's you
Hmm.
that heals you. I tell people all the
Hmm.
time, the adjustments aren't helping you. The adjustments aren't what healing you. It's what happens
Yeah.
between them when your body starts working with that. You know,
Yeah.
um, a supplement, a very, whole food, like, some of your products, they don't heal anything. They are fuel for the body so that it can process and do itself. Like the same thing with the
Mm.
adjustments. The greatest doctors within them, within the individual, and it's responsible for adapting to its environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, kind of going back to your background, if you will, when you made that decision to go to become a chiropractor, how was that received by people? I mean, I know, like, thank goodness holistic health and non-traditional forms of medicine are coming on board and more mainstream, right? But like, I think that there's some myths about it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just curious, like, family, friends, like what was kind of the perception of you going down that path?
Um, I'd love to say that I really like knew, I guess, but I've
Mm,
never been one to totally I guess take too much of a care in what other people think about what I'm doing,
yeah,
for better or for
good.
worse.
Yeah.
I just like when it resonates like deep within me, I just listen to that. I try not to, listen to outside voices, no different than Richmond. Like if you told, if I told somebody 5 years ago, 10 years ago, hey, I'm going to move to a state I've never been in. I'm going to go to school for something I barely understand. I'm going to open up my own business in a town I've never been in, don't know a single soul. Like that sounds crazy, but like it's a crazy talk.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of, I just at a certain point you have to listen to like that. Just be aware
Intuition.
and listen to that voice within and go with it. So
Mm,
I've never been too much to I guess follow the pack or whatever. So
mhm.
to be honest, I don't know what other people think. I know that there's likely a not a stigma, but just a kind of pushback for alternative medicine, which is just funny to me. Like, if somebody's like calls me alternative or, whatever, it's like, okay, whatever. He like doesn't care, and because to
Yeah.
me, alternative medicine is not, it's two things. It's not alternative and it's not medicine. it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just how it's things that help the body do what it does. And
Mm,
that's not medicinal and that's
right.
not alternative. That's essential.
Yeah.
So,
Primal, really.
right. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that any of those things really, really impacted me. Just because based on kind of my, I guess my personality and the fact that nobody can kind of convince me that think that it's a bad idea at this point. Like
Yeah.
just take a walk
Awesome.
in the office and see the people that are, I guess my research study, like if somebody told me, hey, like here's a research thing that says, chiropractic is, mildly successful for back issues. I'd be like, okay, cool. Well, tell that to the person that has not had a migraine in, for the first time in 10 years. Tell that to the person
Mm,
who's not having panic attacks anymore. Tell that to the baby who's, latching while breastfeeding. Tell that to the pregnant mom
mm.
who, had her baby flip. Like, it does, you know what I mean? It doesn't, none of that stuff. Like you could throw any research article you had at me. You could tell me that whatever. My, my group is here at the office, and that's my internal research, and they're affirming that everything that we're doing is on track for what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes, absolutely. And that is actually one of my questions that I want to ask you in a bit, just because you kind of think about chiropractic as being primarily used for back pain or pain reduction in general. But I imagine that there are other ailments and issues ranging from mental health issues to digestive distress, that it can come in handy as well. So I want to get into that. But first, I want to get a little bit deeper into what chiropractic is. And
Sure.
I want to kind of talk about the spine, right? And
Sure.
that concept. And I want to read a quote that I got from your website because I think it is very powerful, and ask you a little bit more about it. But on your website, it says, realizing that your spine and nervous system controls the function, healing, and recreation of your body is the first step to understanding chiropractic. When your spine is in the correct alignment, flexible, and moving well, your nervous system is able to communicate to the rest of your body, thus maximizing the body's function, healing, and recreation. And I just think that's so poignant and beautiful. And I would love for you to kind of just explain more about it, and especially how the spine is basically literally our backbone, but our body is so connected, and
Yeah,
the spine is kind of that.
it
Yeah.
it's our lifeline. Like it's
Mhm.
there's a reason. I think there's like a very kind of like almost like ancient wisdom, um
Mhm.
like reason why yogis have been focusing on the spine for centuries and thousands of years. Like they're why is that?
Mhm.
Chiropractic has only been around technically for about 125 years, 126 years, but it's really been around for the principles are timeless. Like it doesn't, like the principles that we operate on are not did not just start at a certain date. It's like, okay, here we go. The spine,
Right.
the nervous system controls things. Now chiropractic is born. Like it doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
Um, it's been around for a long time. A lot of people think chiropractic, they think back doctor, neck doctor. You're absolutely right. But
Mhm.
really what I tell people is, instead of focusing just on the bones, what we really are nerve doctors. The bones of the spine need to be stacked
Mhm.
evenly. That's just alignment. That's just, again, that's a principle. Alignment, things work better in alignment. That's whether it's your structure, that's whether it's your sole purpose, that's whether it's your relationships. Everything works better in alignment. Well, that's whether it's your car. Your car's tires, they work better in alignment.
Yes.
The So with focusing on the alignment, when the spine's aligned, the bones of the spine are aligned, it's going to make sure that there's not as much there is no pressure on the nerves. So when we're making sure that there's no nerve interference at all, things heal. So your body, and healing is not an event. It's one thing I always tell people as well. Healing's not something that happens, I need to heal from this. Your body's always healing. Right now, I'm healing. My body's in a constant state of healing. So we think about that as terms of, okay, my healing's going to start at this date and end at this date. Well, it's more so a journey, and a
Mhm.
process that never really stops. So when we're looking at that, or at least our approach, twofold. We look at how's the structure of the spine doing, and how's the function of the nerves. And that's two things that we measure and we look at on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis with every one of our practice members. And to be honest, those two are very connected. So for example, if somebody has scoliosis, or if they have bad posture, their head's going forward, or they have pelvic tilt or something like that, anything like that,
Mhm.
the structure's off. And what that means is that's going to impact how their body's functioning. Their muscles are not going to be firing right. Their nerves are going to be compressed in a way. They could have a disc issue, or nerves that are getting pinched, anything like that, because how the body works is dependent on how the structure works. And then it becomes like a rabbit, or a dog chasing its own tail, or what came first, chicken or the
Mhm.
egg? Well, is the structure off
Yeah.
because the function is not working, or is the function off because the structure is not working? Well, it doesn't really matter at that point, because the body's out of whack. And the way to get that is kind of fix both simultaneously, because they raise up together. And that's really our focus, is how do we help the structure of the spine and the function of the nerves help you optimize your own health better.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I'm a yoga teacher, and I remember going through my yoga teacher training, and um, in one of, the early sessions I had with my teacher and mentor at the time, she had said something about the spine, being a focus of yoga. And it was just basically like, oh, mind blown. Like
Yeah.
that's not something that you think of when, of course, it is one of the fundamental principles.
Oh yeah.
But I just feel as if in our society, people don't give enough energy and attention to alignment or the spine, or it's just, exercise and movement and all these different modalities of health and wellness encompass so much, so other areas. And you just don't think that like, oh, the body alignment, it just makes so much sense now when I hear
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say it.
Health's not just one thing, but
Right.
it can be simple. I think that
Yes.
God made the simple things of the world to confound the wise. So the
Mhm.
simple, the more the super simple things out there, I think we need to have a respect for complexity. The
Mm.
body's so complicated and complex and simple at the same time. Like there are 100,000 reactions going on in like this cell in your fingertip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's communicating with the hands of the cell. Like right now, if you're writing notes, like you're sending messages from your brain to your hand down your spinal cord, which is then thinking about it. You're processing it with the emotions, and you're seeing with your eyes, and you're listening, and you're hearing me, and we're interacting with our environment. All of a sudden, you feel like a temperature, like the air conditioning comes on, and your body's adapting. Like a million things are happening all at once, and we don't give
Yeah.
enough credit to that. And instead
Right.
of understanding it, it's just how do we just respect that? That's freaking wild,
Yeah.
and just let the complexity just be. And the yeah, I think the more simple and things are, the better they work.
Yeah. And I think, that's just, again, such a great perspective, because I feel as if a lot of people in our society, not to put a generalization on anything, but especially women, they can have this almost like not so body positive perspective of their own physical body. And I think just hearing you talk, like it's definitely something that we should regard with so much respect, and also with this idea that it's a miracle, and all
Oh,
of these
huge.
things that are going on. So I think that that can really help people's relationship with their body as well. And,
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that people do to be well, quote unquote, like, all these like hardcore cardio hit workouts when, and like restrictive diets. And that kind of puts it in the camp of, I think, a little punitive.
Mhm.
Um, so, but when we can kind of shift our perspective around the physical body and learn to see it as this amazing machine, I think that that could really help people's wellness journeys.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, modern day society, speaking of, isn't super conducive to proper alignment and posture. I mean, as I'm sitting here, like
I
having to
know.
constantly remind myself,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's horrible. So what kind of advice do you give to people to be able to offset that?
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm sitting here, my shoulders are slouched. I'm squinting at my computer screen. The I think there needs to be a balance of things. Like there's a million
Mhm.
things that are around us that are probably no good for us. I have a good friend of mine in Richmond who's a functional medical doctor. His name is Leland Stillman, and
Mm.
he's great guy. He's very into a lot of like light therapies and like things like EMF and whatnot. So a lot of that, like simply sitting here in front of a computer screen as it's like, blaring out EMF, and I don't understand any of this stuff. I just take his word for it on the fact that it's probably not good for me, which again, makes sense to me. We did
Right.
a couple hundred years ago, we didn't live with, laptops in our faces and phones in our pockets. So like, it makes sense,
Right.
but
Yeah.
at some level you have to cut your losses and say, okay, well, this is for life. This is how life is now, and I'm not going to beat myself up for every single choice that I make. And but yes, you're right, there needs to be a certain level of making things, trying to at least go the other direction. Big advice I give to people, and it's not easy, and it shouldn't be, frankly, is that we have conveniences in life right now. The more inconvenient you can make your life with movement in particular, your body's going to thank you for it. So,
Mm.
for example, instead of walking, instead of driving to the grocery store, walk if you're able to. And if
Mhm.
that's a quarter mile and you live in the city, great. If that's a mile, try it. What? Try
Yeah.
walking the grocery store. What's wrong with a mile walk? And,
Yeah.
or if that means parking further away or carrying your groceries instead of using a cart, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And, that's just one example. You could, I don't know, you could, instead of buying pre-cut vegetables at the store, get ones that you already own and use your own knife to cut them. Instead
Yeah.
of pressing a button or ordering coffee, why don't you get your own beans and grind them by hand with a grind? Like, all of those things stack up, and it sounds ridiculous, but the movement is totally essential. Any time that we're not moving, our body's not like our bodies crave movement. So that's where a lot of this posture problems come from, whether it's looking down at your phone, looking at your computer, anything like that. It creates problems, and that's just based on lifestyle. So in order to combat that, the biggest thing you can do is try to strengthen a lot of muscles that get lax while you're sitting. So for example, as you're sitting if you're sitting here watching this or listening to this or in a car or wherever you are, and just you and I as well, our shoulders are rounded, our chests are probably getting more contracted along the pec muscles, and our back muscles are lax. And our heads are pitched forward. So the front of our neck muscles and our chest muscles are getting tight based on posture, and our back and back of the neck muscles are getting stretched. So all you have to do is just open it up. So think about it in like everybody probably knows like the fetal position, kind of everything's in flexion. Going into extension, the body craves that. The body really likes that. So getting into like, maybe it's a doorway and doing your putting your arms back and stretching your chest muscles, or just tilting your head back and just getting that extension. Your spinal cord actually has less tension on it when you're in extension. When your when your whole body's in flexion, it tenses the spinal cord. So it really creates extension, and we need to get more into extension. So that's just, our lifestyle is in front of us. We're driving, we're on the laptop, we're at the desk, we're sitting. All that stuff is necessary. I'm not going to say it's not. I drove to work today and I'm sitting here talking to you. So but as much as you can get walking, get upright, get your head back, get things moving, and most importantly, use it. Don't just sit there and stretch and be like, oh yeah, there we go, got my stretching for the day. No, you need to use your body. You need to get exercise that movement.
Yeah. I had one of my first employees that was working for me. She ended up getting one of these straps that she would, that hooked around. It was to help with her posture, and it kind of pulled. It sounds like what you're saying. And they just kind of opened up, and it literally pulled her shoulders back. And I've been thinking about that. And I don't know, like with things like that you recommend at your desk, whether it be one of those things or like a lumbar spine support, or sitting on a medicine ball instead of a chair.
Right.
But I think what you're saying about functional movement throughout the day doesn't sound crazy at all, because, it almost sounds cliche now, but if you think about kind of generations past, like they didn't exercise, they didn't do the elliptical, right? They like hauled wood and ground wheat and fed animals. So it's like all those like little movements throughout the day.
It's convenient,
and they walked everywhere. Exactly.
It's those conveniences that we add into our life that come to kind of bite us in the rear end. So the less convenient you can make your life, and the more you can provide a stimulus for movement. Because what causes injury, in order to recover from an injury, and this is any sort of injury, whether it's physical, chemical, emotional, you need to have a stimulus that's greater than what caused the injury to recover from that. And oftentimes people say, like, get in a car wreck and they want to slap on like a thing of ice or heat. Like, that's zero stimulus. You need to move it. You need to get that thing moving, and overcome that in a therapeutic way, in a deliberate way, not just doing head banging or anything like that, but in a very deliberate way to heal. And it has to come from you. So, you talk about the straps, the back support or anything like that. And those are fine. And if it works, but in my opinion, like that's a passive form. It doesn't, like, there's no component where you need to do that work. So anything that really works well and works long term, it has to come from you. It has to be the person, has a very, very active component to it.
Yeah. That's very inspiring, and definitely something I'm going to take away from this conversation. And I actually have a yoga mat in my office and have never once unrolled it, where I told myself just, 5 minutes throughout the day here and
I
there.
bet it
I'm
looks
gonna try
great
and
there
do.
though, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like right next to like my fiddle leaf tree, and it like has this, a wellness bent vibe in my corner, but no, it's collecting dust. So
Yeah, no, a
I'm
couple
going
minutes a
to try.
day, every hour doing like a
Yeah.
5 minute routine. I promise you, you do a 5 minute routine every hour, in between calls like this. And everybody if everybody did that, it'd be feeling 10 times better.
Yes, a good little challenge. That's awesome. So I want to get a little bit more into why people come to see you. And specifically, I imagine there's, athletes and young professionals that complain of back pain. And obviously you said pregnant women and injuries and then on the other side of that coin, like there's the physical, reasons. And then I imagine there's also kind of more of the mental, emotional, digestive, that thing. So can you talk to me a little bit more about kind of your patient base and the
Sure.
types of people you see and the types of issues you treat?
Yeah. Um, so I would say that most of our patients, and hopefully nobody takes offense to this, is they are typically like more of like a millennial generation, somewhere between like
Mhm.
20 to 40, and
Mhm.
right now. And the reason I think that is because they saw, and myself included, they saw a lot of like their whether parents or relatives not take care of themselves and not value health and go through the medical system and get let down, whether it's with like pills, medications, physical therapy stuck in there, and they're like, I don't want to do that anymore, and they want something different. So I'd say that's probably most of our patient base is like kind of that range. And how we help them, it depends. Like we talked about earlier, we're very reactive by nature, so it depends on what that individual has going on. But whether that is neck issues or back or shoulder or anxiety or migraines or digestive, I always tell people that we have how medications have like side effects. Like a medication has a
Mhm.
side effect, it's an anti-inflammatory or a steroid or mood stabilizer, anything that has a side effect to it. And chiropractic, as far as I'm concerned, does not have any side effects. In fact, there's side benefits. So people
Yeah.
report to me all the time. If let's say somebody comes in with hip pain, every once in a while, not every once in a while, I'd say the far majority of people come in, they're saying, hey, yeah, like my hip's doing better, but I've noticed that I'm sleeping better, or I've noticed I'm breathing better. I've noticed my having more mobility. I've noticed my, this is going away, that's going away. I feel happier. I feel more like stabilized. I feel this is changing, that's changing. And I call these side benefits. And it's because
Mm.
they're not side effects. There's nothing negative happening. It's just all these things that start happening as a result of you expressing health better. Now, of course,
Yeah.
our main focus is always, very customized. I want somebody with shoulder issues to help their shoulder issues feel better. But guess what? What's really cool is when that person with shoulder issues starts sleeping better. It's when they start
Mhm.
doing, they're getting sick less often. Just this week, a couple people that have been coming up to, several months said, normally I get sinus infections throughout the entire wintertime. He's like, I haven't had a single sinus infection. And that was one of the things that I noticed myself too, when I was under care for, extended periods of time. It's easy to notice when things are not there, or it's sometimes hard to notice when things are not there. It's like, the shoulder issue, whatever, because like, oh yeah, it's not there anymore. I don't hurt. But then you start
Yeah.
thinking in terms of how well your body's functioning. Well, when your body's functioning better, it doesn't get sick as often. So
Mm.
or rather not get sick. It doesn't express health. You don't get runny noses. You don't get infections, things like that, because your immune system's working better, all this stuff. And that's just, it's harder to notice on a very minute level, but it happens all the time. So
Yeah.
these are the more side benefits that people love to tell me about is, I'd say across the board, probably the top 3 or 4 are people sleep better, which is
Mhm.
huge. You talk about, a lot of women, huge for moms, especially. Like, I don't even know how
Yeah.
the heck moms do it at all to begin with, let alone, so sleeping is for them.
Gosh.
When they say, they're sleeping better, I know that this is the real deal for them.
Oh. Mhm.
So like sleep, energy, mood, and probably, immune system are some of the top side benefits that people say. So, our focus is always, typically the pain. But that's not, and I don't say that to like negate that, like pain sucks.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but it's cool. What's also cool is when people function better too.
Yeah. And is that because, I mean, the way that I understand it, especially running along the spine and the different nerves that connect to the certain areas of the spine, are connected to various parts of the body, like the immune system or the nervous
Yeah,
system,
you got it.
brain health, et cetera.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So like,
cool. That is so fascinating.
the low back, for example, if somebody has low back issues, it's not very uncommon for them to also say, hey, I have digestive issues too, because the nerves that are
Yeah.
going to the low back go to the digestive organs as well.
Mhm.
And even bigger picture, our big focus is to help shift that body more into that healing mode, that healing state.
Mhm.
And that comes with really rebalancing what's called the autonomic nervous system. It's the automatic side of things. They control automatically. It's like your heartbeat and your lungs breathe, immune system works, all these things that happen without you having to think about it.
Mhm.
Most people know the branch called the fight or flight mode. It's called
Mhm.
sympathetic. The opposite of that is called the parasympathetic, which is more rest
Mhm.
and relax. So you have fight or flight, fight and flight on one hand, and then you have rest and relax. So I always kind of relate it to, it's like a gas pedal and a brake pedal. Most people are living on their gas pedal. They're just running
Yeah.
pedal to the metal. Their bodies are running on empty, and their nervous systems are stressed out to the max.
Yeah.
So what our big focus is how do we shift that, dial that back, press the gas pedal, help you kind of dial back and get more into that healing mode, instead of that mode where you're kind of running on empty.
Yeah. And I think I do a lot of kind of work for that, personally, because, as an entrepreneur and someone who is a recovering perfectionist and type A operator, and I've worked with a life coach for years who, has experience as a yoga teacher and meditation teacher. And so she really helps me connect my fight or flight, way that I tend to operate to sensations and feeling in my body. And so I've become really connected to when I'm operating under that mode, what does my body feel like? And, a lot of the times it's very constricted, it's very tightly wound. Like I can even feel it in my gut and in my chest. So kind of along the lines of what you're saying, that in order to kind of, and I have a very regular meditation practice that I do every morning, but really the real work is throughout the day when I get off of my yoga block and I go along with all of my responsibilities. But it's noticing that, right? And then it's trying to like soften, because I can imagine that it's not just injury or, poor posture or what have you. It's when we're operating under that fight or flight constantly, as so many people are. I mean, that energetically in the body can just wreak havoc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it seriously can be. I'd say most, to kind of pivot again back to what you were asking originally, I'd say most of, and this is not just in my office, this is probably in most healthcare, period. It's chronic stress induced illness.
Mhm.
And that's really what a lot of this comes down to. Um, a lot of people come in and they're like, oh my gosh, like I was fine up until that day where I bent down to pick up the pen and my back blew out, or something like
Yeah.
that. Or, something triggered. I was fine. I have migraines and usually they're fine, but I had a, piece of chocolate and it triggered a migraine. Well, it wasn't the piece of chocolate that did it, in my
Mhm.
opinion, at least.
Right.
And I see
Right.
a lot of people with migraines, and triggers can be very, hit or miss. Usually what it is the body has that sensitivity to the point where it was under such tremendous pressure that the piece of chocolate did it, the pen did it, and that's
Mhm.
really, there was so much an overwhelm of stress that they're like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes complete sense. So in the time we have left, I want to quickly talk about sleep, because,
Yes.
selfishly, it is something I majorly struggle with, and I know people in our audience do too. Um, and I think a lot of it can be traced back to, stress and anxiety. Obviously, I think part of it can be, through the lens of nutrition and lifestyle or what have you. But I'm so curious to hear how chiropractic affects it, and especially to, for me in particular, like I fall asleep fine, but 4:30 on the dot, I'm awake with a little bit of insomnia, and I do not.
Mm.
And I told you in the very beginning, I struggle with back pain too. So I'm having these aha moments where I'm like, okay, obviously everything's all connected. Um, and I would just love to hear more about how it is connected to sleep.
Yeah, no, I mean, sleep's not something to mess around with. Sleep, in my opinion,
Yeah.
is more important than, just about every aspect of health. If we just got our sleep
Yeah.
together, we wouldn't need, I think I would rank sleep above fitness, or like movement, at least exercise. I would rank it above nutrition. I don't care how many salads you eat. If you're not getting sleep, your body's not working on it.
Right.
So sleep
Agreed.
is absolutely paramount. And I think people that neglect that are going to be fighting it. And not to say people that neglect it, like for example, you just struggle with it. And that's not to say like you're not prioritizing it. It's just, you have a hard time focusing on it because it's
Yeah.
something's off. With sleep, it presents itself very differently in each person that comes here. And oftentimes they don't even tell me that they're struggling with sleep until they tell me that it's better. Which is kind of funny, because it's, again, hey, we didn't even tell me we're doing this, and your body's already
Right.
starting to figure it out. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint sometimes because we don't track it until people tell me that it's better, and in which case they had to tell me that it's struggling. But sometimes people have trouble falling asleep. Sometimes people have trouble staying asleep. Again, and it comes down to the nervous system. When we're able to help shift you out of that fight or flight mode, you can get into that rest and relax mode a whole lot easier. The rest and relax and fight or flight are these two they're like yin and yang, right? You need to have both. They're necessary. It's the problem when there's only a focus on one. And it's so pushed, and our lifestyle, or just our daily lives, are so focused on fight or flight that it's hard to shift ourselves out of that. So the thing that I would say to focus on with sleep, at least as far as with chiropractic wise, of course, it's a lot easier to sleep when you're not in pain. So when things are in balance and the nervous system is in balance and the structure is in imbalance, then you're going to sleep better. You're going to sleep more full. You're going to sleep more rested, more efficiently, all of the above. But sleep it's not like a cookie cutter thing. There's just with anything in health. It's not like a one answer for that particular problem. In fact, I've been trying to do a lot of, listening to other podcasts on sleep and things like that. One of the ones lately that I've been listening to is a dentist, like a functional dentist. And he recognizes, and he was explaining the fact that how important breathing is for sleep, and nasal breathing especially. And he recommends everybody do mouth taping. So placing a piece of tape on your mouth, which forces you to nasal breathe. When you breathe air through the nose as opposed to through the mouth, it's going to stimulate a ton of different receptors. And he knows it much better than I do. I think his name is like Stephen Lynn or something like that. If anybody wants to look up his podcast or his Instagram or something. And but he focuses on mouth taping, keeps you from breathing in the mouth, keeps you breathing in the nose, stimulates nitric oxide, I believe, which is a vasodilator. It opens up blood vessels. It helps get air into the lungs. It hydrates the air as it goes into the lungs, as opposed to breathing very stale, very hot air if it's through the mouth. And so breathing is one of those things that I think can be tremendously affected with sleep. So if anybody wants to try, I'm down to do experiments. I think I'm going to do it myself. Get some mouth taping, tape my mouth, and see if it improves my sleep. And I think I sleep fine, but it's one of those things that, hey, how else can I optimize it? So and this is, I guess, an example of, hey, I don't have all the answers. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'll be the first to tell somebody that I don't know. And if there's something that's maybe not chiropractic related, like if you get adjusted super regularly, but your sleep still sucks, well, maybe it's not chiropractic related. Maybe it could be the fact that you're eating hot wings at 11 p.m. every night.
Late at night, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely all these different facets that can play into it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And speaking of, one of my final questions for you is that, I get a sense that, just like me, that you're a constant learner, a constant student, and you seem to have a genuine thirst for knowledge, especially in your field. So what is it that you're currently learning about right now and that you're fascinated and excited about?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I always tell people that a lot of the moms and kids, families we take care of, I was like, you know how 2 years old, if you have kids, is the age of what? Like, what's that? What's that? What's that? And then 3 years old is
Yeah.
the age of why. It's like, well, why? And I'm pretty sure that I've never really left that why stage. I've been stuck in it for many. Um, so I would say that that's probably what I just said about sleeping is the thing
Mhm.
that's kind of interesting me the most lately.
Yeah,
It's how to improve sleep. And
that's awesome.
and how that happens. But with whether it's with all health, I think the number one thing that we can focus on with health, whether it's sleep or chiropractic or diet or movement, it's always like, what's our intention behind it, and
Mm,
set that. So like it doesn't for whatever your people are interested in learning is set the figure out why you're, I guess, interested, and
yeah.
and that would be like the most impactful. It doesn't matter what anybody what I'm learning or interested in is. Well, like, what are you like?
Yeah.
Figure out what's like kind of fueling your fire, and what's why do you want to get up to that next level? So
Yeah. Boom. I mean, we could end the conversation right there. That's awesome. And I think, people really need to connect to a deeper why and to be more intentional about what they're doing in the world of wellness. So I think that's really powerful. But I do want to, for anyone listening that is completely new to chiropractic and doesn't really know what to expect, like what would you tell somebody, or what could they expect if they came in to see you, especially
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that
I mean,
first
so
consultation?
we always, in our office, a lot of people say like, "Hey, I've never been to a chiropractor. What's the deal?" And we always just start off with just talking. I was like, "Okay, so what's going on?" And usually I tell people
Mhm.
like, "Okay, well, it sounds like this is something that I can help with. If it's not something I can directly help with, or I think you need, more different help somewhere else. Like if somebody comes in with, and they're telling me that they have digestive issues, and I, just chat with them on the phone and find out that the diet's something's wrong with the diet, I'll say, oh, listen, I'd be happy to see you, but it sounds like, somebody like Sarah could probably coach you a little bit better than I could at this point. So,
Mm, mhm.
if they're interested, it usually starts with just a conversation on the phone and just saying, okay, well, what's going on? How can we help? So, and just like I said, in our office, we do take that almost a two-pronged approach. One focusing on more structure of the spine, and the two focusing more on the function of the nerves. So if those two are off, then that's how your body's manifesting health.
Mm,
So that's really what our focus is. So people usually know to some extent that they feel off. Women say, "Oh, I can't wear a purse on my left shoulder because it falls off because my shoulders are tilted," or "I notice for
mm.
pictures my head's always off center," or something like
Yes,
that. And so
I
people
noticed
usually
that.
know on some level that
Mhm.
something's not right.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think that, people should definitely, especially if they haven't heard about it or haven't considered it in the past, and this information and conversation is resonating with them. I mean, I know I'm inspired. So I'm going to be booking an appointment. That's for sure. Because and I'm actually pleasantly surprised because pregnant, I have not experienced a lot of lower back pain that I thought I would, or kind of like it's more upper back and neck kind of weirdly enough. So
I would say
anyway.
most of our pregnant women, they don't come in. I'd say about maybe 50-50. Somewhere maybe in the minority come in because they
Uh-huh.
have something, they feel like something's off. Most of them come in, hey, I just want to make sure that my pregnancy is as good as it can be, especially for
Yeah.
a lot of first time moms.
Yeah.
And that, so it's, again, it goes back to function. So since that's our primary outcome, you could some people tell me, hey, I have nothing going on, and other people tell me I have everything going on. And to be honest, that doesn't dictate what we need to do, with
Yeah.
on at least on our end, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how can we help, again, your body work better?
Yeah. I love that. So before we sign off, where can people find you?
Uh, myself and my wife, our practice name is Omni, like the hotel, Omni Family Chiropractic. You can look that up on Google. The address is very easy to remember. It's therichmondchiropractor.com.
Mm.
I'm on Instagram at Dr. Joe Abretski, but I'm very terrible at maintaining that. So I need to shift a little bit of focus there. Every once in a while, if you really like low quality memes, you could follow me on Instagram.
Oh, my husband does. I'll tell him.
And very little
Yeah.
posts, but the something that's on my to-do list to kind of ramp up and improve with that. So, but yeah, mostly is the office, which is the website's therichmondchiropractor.com.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Joe, it has been an absolute pleasure. And I know I've learned so much, and I'm sure people listening have as well. So thank you so much for your time today and your
Awesome.
wisdom and knowledge. And it's just great to be connected, and hope we stay in touch.
Yes. Thanks, Sarah. Awesome to chat
All
with
right.
you.
Yeah. You have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.